Welcome to the Dancer Dice Twice. This is the podcast where we gather as live performing artists to explore the spaces that are often shrouded in silence, especially for professional dancers. Now, whether you are an aspiring professional that is seeking guidance, or perhaps you may be on a job right now facing some challenges, or maybe you've already been through the inevitable and had to depart the stage. This is the space for that. And today I've invited someone who has been a very big part of, I would say, a source of inspiration in some of the darkest times in my life. You probably would know him professionally from shows such as like So You Think You Can Dance. And I don't want to kind of get into it too much with his professional background, because that's something that I want him to sort of like jump in on. But I do also want to say that we aim to not only share our experiences, but also just to hear the untold stories that shape a dancer's journey from outside of the spotlight, because I feel that it's a space that isn't really often explored. And even though I have worked with this individual on numerous jobs in the past, it's crazy to think that we share so much time, yet we don't really know the stories of how an artist has really come to be as well. And even with my closest friends that I've had on the pod, I'm learning so much about them, which is also, a really exciting thing. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to bring in the magnificent, brilliant Patrick Kuo. Hey, man. What's up?
How's it going, man?
Good.
That was a great introduction.
Yeah, well, hey, man, like, honestly, I reached out to you because you popped up during a conversation. Well, you popped up in my mind as I was having the conversations with Oscar Wilson, as we were exploring just, the spaces of how being an artist and, using that expression through movement is what we do. And I just remembered it took me back, man, to a space. And I don't know if you remember, but we were hanging out, we were doing, I think it was Carmen at the time. And bro, you may have known this or not, but that was the darkest times in my life, man. And I remember you wouldn't even say things or whatever. I would literally watch you in the rehearsal room sometimes. You would just be off, like, in your craft, always practicing, or we might have, like, spoken about some of these topics of in this creative space. But like I said, it was like a dose of creativity that was, I guess, like a light for me in some of these darkest times of my life, man. Obviously,
wow, yeah.
I didn't know this because, I was in such a bad place.
Of it. Yeah.
Inside of it. It's only when I look back. And that's why I was like, after I got off that pod, I was like, I got to get in touch with Pat, man. And I really want to know more about just how you function in the spaces of an artist, because mate, I'm telling you, like, not only, like, obviously professionally you've seen much success, within just in Australia, but that was such a long time ago. And seeing you, go overseas to France, man, and like, I remember you learning French before you left.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, I'm like seeing you on French TV talking French. And I'm like, how does this guy do this? And then every time you put up a bit of work and all, like, I'm sure you probably might not call it work, but whenever I see you kind of like, putting up stuff where you're dancing, I'm just like, oh, like I get that I get that thing again. I go, oh, it makes me want to, get in touch with my own creativity, man. So,
Yeah,
thank
cool,
you, bro.
cool, cool, cool.
And the fact that you've, decided to come on board, man. I'm just really, I feel really
No,
grateful.
look,
So
I
thank you,
was
man.
very
Yeah.
excited to talk to you. You know, it's we haven't seen each other. I think it was since Carmen, right? Like that was just before I moved to France. So that was, but maybe I saw you once when I came back, but I don't remember because after Carmen, where you would have been, were you in Sydney still after that, or did you move around a bit?
Yeah, I've been
Anyway,
moving around. Yeah. Mm.
it's been like probably maybe 7 or 8 years that we haven't seen each other. But I saw you like just before I left to Paris, so there's lots to catch up on. I do kind of remember that you saying certain things about being in a dark place, but I never would have thought it was as much as that. Um,
Mm.
I remember sharing a lot of fun times during that period and lots of talks. But no, yeah, it's very touching what you say about the, watching me kind of work around the studio. I think I'm just kind of nervous a lot of the time, trying to make sure I'm doing the best thing. But it's cool if that's inspiring on the other side. That's a fun thing to hear. And I'm excited to get into the story a bit, and I'll kind of follow your questions. Let's get into
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I'm happy
for
to talk about
sure.
whatever. And yeah, let's go.
Yeah, yeah. Before I do start asking you a little bit about your story, it just amazes me that to hear you just say what you just said then about like how you're just like nervous and just sort of like like
Yeah, like
working
super
in those spaces
perfectionist.
like that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like,
Wow. Okay.
I think, yeah, I take it a bit too seriously. I used to think that I was taking things with as a joke because I was making often like comedy, but I would be taking myself so seriously in every rehearsal, or like wanting to do the absolute best I could, and if the movements didn't fall together in a way that seemed logical and correct, then it would be frustrating, you know. So that's I'm often, even still to this day, like my busyness in my head of working, trying to figure it out. But also, I love it. So yeah, I guess that's part of it too. Um,
Wow. Okay. So you really do break it down from a logical perspective. Does that come first, or like I feel like I'm kind of like going right into wanting to know
that's
more
fine.
about, how you work. I think
Hmm.
I'm learning about myself. I kind of don't really speak linear, but
That's fine.
uh,
Me too. Me too. That's fine.
uh,
That's fine. I follow. Um,
but maybe we'll get to there. I
okay.
feel like there's so it could go into such a really yeah, it could really explore those spaces for quite profoundly. But let's hear your like backstory, man. Like what got you into all of this? Like how did you get into this, and maybe why, or maybe some of who your inspirations were, bro? Like
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you're younger,
yeah.
coming into it all.
Yeah, I've gotten used to telling the story a bit. It's kind of the first thing I ask people as well when I meet other dancers and everything, like, what's your dance story? So I've got my speech kind of ready to go. I grew up, my initial introduction to dancing was watching like old Hollywood films with my brother. So Julian and I, you know Julian as well, right? So he's in Hamilton now, and we used to
Mm-hmm.
watch like lots of old Hollywood films when we were kids. So mainly like Gene Kelly and Bob Fosse, or any of these kinds of Fred Astaire, etc. So we were kind of always performing when we were young, and both of our parents are artists. So we were kind of surrounded by paintings, and we had a lot of interesting objects, and we were encouraged to do what we wanted. We were excited about performing for the family. So it started like that. We went to Brent Street, the older generation. So I started at Brent Street when I was 7. I was there until I was 14. Usually I have to explain that to people in France. I have to say, yeah, it's a performing arts school, a bit in American style. That's how I describe it to people, because in France, everyone studies classic. Basically, everybody's doing ballet. If you want to be a dancer, you can't be taken seriously, or your dreams are not taken seriously unless you're going to be a classical dancer in France. Um, And so I have to often explain, like, oh yeah. So we actually had a much more fun way of growing up in dance in Australia. Like, I remember like running across the floor. Every Saturday was like a social experience because it was Brent Street, so everyone would dress up fun, and there'd be a whole energy playing the 80s jazz sounds and running down the floor. So it was all this that kind of got me initially excited about dancing. Before that, I always wanted to do something in the arts, drawing or playing music or theatre. But out of all those, dance was the most fun. And I think Australia is very interesting for that because we have this dance school culture where we all get to just learn many styles and everyone can be hungry for it. So I grew up like that, the same way that like a lot of Australian dancers grow up, in that special context of Brent Street, which was this hyper competitive environment. But I stopped when I was 14, I think, at Brent Street, 13 or 14. And I discovered like street styles. Like I watched You Got Served for the first time. And then like, I used to say it like, the classical violinist might discover the guitar and want to like play rock and roll. So I wanted to do hip hop at that stage. So I changed all my style. I like started buying caps and baggy t-shirts. And I remember I saw Jordan Hill perform, and he would have been like 12. And I was still at Brent Street, and I'd never seen anyone. I've seen like maybe bits of hip hop on TV, but I'd never seen any Australian my age doing it. And I saw this kid who was like little, he had a cap and everything. And I was like, wow, he's so cool. He's surrounded by all these older girls. I want to do hip hop as well. So I started doing hip hop at UDC. Right. That's where I met Kieran and Geordie, and we started, yeah. And so I was like, taking classes, I guess, this kind of, that whole period with Cisco and Rosa and Jet, and so that's like a whole other period. And then that led me to what I would call the most important part of my dance story as a teenager, which was with my crew, Too Much Bun. So I made that with Bodie, Geordie, and Kieran, which eventually became Instant Bun, which mixed with a bunch of your mates as well because they're up north. So that, for anyone who's not familiar with it, was like a kind of parody breakdance crew. We would, at the time, I was obsessed with it, and it was kind of like my baby. It's all I cared about. I'd mix the music. I would doodle about it in my books at school. I would draw different logos for Too Much Fun. I would imagine costumes and what music will go into what music. And so that was basically from when I was maybe 14, 15 until I was 19. I think that took up that time. And we would make many performances a year. We would be at the carnivals and the competitions, and we would enter battles. And this was a very important time for me because we were so free. And I think I took it for granted. I didn't realize that it was we were doing something serious. It felt like it felt important to us, but I didn't believe that we were working as real professionals. But when I look back, like, we were very young. We were already making money and selling shows, organizing mixes, and we had a write up, and we were working professionally. But then, at a moment, I felt this need to discover under other circumstances. Like, I wanted to be a real professional dancer, which I couldn't be. I felt if I was focused on the crew. I think in retrospect that is wrong. I think we could have just kept that going. We could have kept on exploring and creating inside of it. And we can come back to that. But basically, to keep on moving in my story, I started working more as a dancer. So that's when I started meeting yourself, and we were working on X Factor and all these sorts of all these kinds of jobs. So I was doing that, and I was teaching. Teaching was also another important element, because that's where I learned to choreograph as well. So it was like Matthew Gaultier and I teaching at the Village, and we would have like 30 kids in a class, maybe like 5 classes a day, and you're making up routines on these kids that you know and you love. So we were creating what we believed to be very artistically, but in this context of like Australian dance competition, which is pretty strange context to put your creativity. So we got used to kind of creating formations and picking the right song that, okay, so for example, I was teaching the hip hop routines. That was my job, was to make hip hop choreography for a bunch of kids for a competition. So I know that they're going to be up against other schools. They're going to do this song or that song. They'll probably wear this sort of clothes. Okay, then we'll do this instead because that will be a point of difference because it's a competition context. So Matthew and I were kind of obsessed with discussing what we're going to do next that can be shocking at an Eisteddfod or someplace that we're not really trying to shock. Like I don't, we thought we were changing the world, but it's just dance Eisteddfod, you know. But so we were taking that very seriously, and it was a big occasion for me to learn and to create my style of choreography, I think. So we're doing that, commercial dancing, and at the same time, I was creating kind of performance pieces, which I think is important to talk about if you want to discuss art in dance spaces, because I was kind of playing with that a long time ago. You were part of my first art show, Oingo Boingo. I don't know if you remember that. We made an art exhibition with like we made a bunch of dance films that we put into reverse with like a sound design. It was like there was a whole concept around that, but that was really just us trying our luck at creating in a context that felt more universal, the art world, as opposed to creating just inside of the dance context. So yeah, it was doing that. And that basically is when I moved to Paris, I'd say. Like I did So You Think You Can Dance, and then yeah, we were doing the opera, and I was going to go to art school. I was actually enrolled to COFA in Sydney, and at that same time, then instead I moved to Paris. So moved to Paris. First, when arriving in Paris, I didn't want to dance straight away as work because I saw it as this. I thought I would be here for maybe a year or two, and I watched a lot of European street dance. So I thought I would come to Paris and try to learn, make some friends, learn from their styles, kind of quickly build up level, because I never did full time or anything. And I was like, okay, I have to kind of gather as many skills and make good choices about who I'm learning from, because you kind of grab their taste immediately. So I met this guy, Yanu Ninja, who's a voguer, and he was a funny guy, a very unique guy. So he started to teach me voguing, and I also was training with another guy who had a kind of French breakdancing style. So he taught me as well for a while when I first arrived here. And at the same time, I was just being a babysitter. So I had this kid that I was looking after, and I was just trying to learn French and practice dancing. So I was just dancing every day and living a kind of touristy French life. But then, yeah, so I was voguing a lot. Basically, voguing took over my training because it matched what I enjoyed, which is I'm not very flexible in the legs. I like moving my upper body, and I like the theatricality and dressing up, the aestheticism and the style. So I was like, yeah, let's go for voguing. I'm going to go into it. But at a moment that also became a bit restricting to be able to just create inside of that. And again, it's just like entering into a new context, just like Sydney dance competitions. It's the same thing, like, because at the end of the day, there are a bunch of rules and you have to create within those rules. So I know if I'm entering this ball, then I'm going to be against this voguer, that voguer, this voguer. Therefore, they're going to dress like this. I'll do this because I'll be against them. And so again, it kind of holds you into creating within a certain framework. And I always wanted to just create totally for anyone. So I kind of stopped voguing as well. I started mixing all of these influences to work. So my goal was like just work, get some interesting jobs, because in Paris there's lots of cool stuff. I wanted to work in fashion or cinema, and there's like lots of interesting stuff. And I met a lot of models and dancers of different styles who had their own personality, and I was very impressed by the way that they could hold the screen or the attention just by themselves as a dance artist, which we're not really used to in Australia. Where we grew up more to become a part of a group, to exist, as a backup dancer, which is also fun. I also really enjoy being a backup dancer. But I noticed in Paris, a lot of the work was about having your own style. You had to be able to sell it yourself as if you were the star, because that's necessary. If you're in a campaign for fashion or for perfume or something, then often they're looking for dancers, and you have to do beautiful stuff, but you have to have the confidence to look in the camera and understand the energy. And so I was inspired a lot by that. Started kind of creating my own style, my own dance that I would, and my own methods of performing that as a soloist. So that was kind of the focus. And then I booked this show, the Jean-Paul Gaultier Fashion Freak show. And that was the first time where I really had done a big show, actually. Like, we had done Carmen and stuff, but this is the first time, like, I was playing, I was the lead role, and I could kind of create the show how I wanted to. So it was a chance to actually be a soloist using my dance for the first time. And that was very fun. After 8 months, I stopped that because it was still like 7 shows a week for 8 months. I was like tired of it at a moment. And so then like joined the cabaret world, started working in this cabaret that I loved when I first got to Paris. So originally when I got here, it was maybe a few months after we arrived, I went to this cabaret called the Manco Cabaret, and this place blew me away because it's basically like a series of shows. So maybe like 5 or 6 numbers, and then a little break for a DJ break where you can dance, and then again 5 numbers. But the numbers were so incredible, like it blew me away. I'm not going to describe anything, but maybe we can like put a link to some images or something from this cabaret. But it inspired me so much because I arrive and it's people of all ages, and everyone is dressed so beautifully or extravagantly, and so like the owners of the club grab us, put us in this booth, start like pouring champagne, and I was in this whirlwind of, this is what I want to do. So anyway, I ended up just going there like every week just to party, because it was such a fun place to go and watch performances and still enjoy yourself without feeling like you had to compete between enjoying yourself and enjoying a show. You could do both at the same time. Blah blah blah. That was I ended up joining that cabaret, so I kind of continued on this exploration of harnessing my dance skills into characters that I could use on stage. So at that cabaret, I was doing like Billy Idol, and I was doing who's like an English rock guy. So I would do like a kind of rock and roll number. I would do playback, kind of working a bit like a drag queen, but I wasn't being a drag queen. I was just being myself, or like using my skills in order to perform. So I'll quickly like give you because cabaret became an important part of my work. And the way people used to ask me like, what is cabaret? And we don't really think about it so much. We think we connect it to burlesque, or we connect it to all these very specific skills as well. But burlesque is actually another skill set. You're talking about, bands or the way to take off clothes. But cabaret, the way that it was described to me, that made me go, oh, that's what I've been doing forever, is that, we go to the theater and we sit down, we're supposed to watch it. We understand that we're going to be there for 2 hours. So we invest ourselves totally into understanding the story, following characters, enjoying the music or the outfits. But in cabaret, you have to get someone's attention immediately. You should be at the bar, maybe you're taking a drink, you're talking with someone, and you want to turn around, and then, you see something that immediately touches you in the same way that we try to build up to in theater. So I love this immediacy of cabaret, that like you have 3-5 minutes to make everyone in the place, you have to grab their attention, and that can be through anything. It could be through humor, it could be through a skill, it could be through an outfit or a kind of aesthetic idea. And so I started getting more and more into cabaret. Now I have like a bunch of different characters that I do. Like I do, the one I do the most is kind of this crooner, Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire character, but it's kind of a modern version. It's my own. Where often I just kind of pick my old favorite jazzy songs, and I know the words already, so I just kind of dance around as if I was like how I used to play in the rehearsal room for Carmen. You know, you just kind of do whatever, but this is very fun. Once you build the confidence, it's like the most fun way to perform. And you just add. Before I would choreograph every single step because that's what I was used to, and over the years of performing, now just you choreograph a couple little moves that you're going to throw in, but basically you just interact with the audience. Whatever is in front of you, you react to, and then you can allow total spontaneity in your performance, and it's very fun. So I do this character. I do like a kind of Bruce Lee character. Well, it is actually Bruce Lee. Like I have a Bruce Lee outfit, the Bruce Lee wig.
I love
We
it.
do, yeah. It's so fun, dude. I do like a gangster mummy. So I'm a mummy, but I'm a kind of hip hop mummy. Um, I've done like Louis XIV with on In Excess. Like you can do all sorts of stuff. Work with a bunch of different costumiers and transformists is what we call them in Paris as well. So people who kind of disguise themselves in these incredible outfits and then create numbers based on that. So yeah, basically been doing a lot of cabaret. So we've done voguing, breaking, the show, cabaret, and also so working in fashion has been a big part of since I've been in Paris as well. Lots of movement direction and because that's kind of the work, that's the game, and it's quite fun here. And making films. So like editing, that came through this film that I made with my partner Marie, who I met here, who was in this show. So we've made one big film that entered festivals. By big film, I mean short film, but I mean big, important to us. And we've made a bunch of different like campaigns for different fashion things or behind the scenes of music, and basically I think that gives the story. Started really in performing arts, Australian style, then shift into to hip hop, my crew, dancing professionally, trying to make art shows, trying to create in different places, moved to Paris, studied a lot of breaking and voguing, entered into the cabaret world, and now working in fashion and film and live events and this sort of stuff. So yeah, that's it. I think that's basically it.
Wow.
It's quite a lot.
Yeah, no, thank you. But I like how you just did the little recap at the very end as well, because there is so much that I'm hearing you, I guess, the reasons of why you continue to sort of make your decisions of going to the next thing that you're doing. And I'm starting to now understand what it is that is kind of, I guess, moving you to these next things. And it sounds as though that like you really don't like to be restricted creatively, or perhaps it's like once you feel like you've now really explored this space and then you kind of see it for what it is and you've done its purpose, you've given whatever that thing is the life of what it is that it is asking from you. You can't help but to just go, all right, what's this next thing now? You know what I mean? And you can see that from very, very early on that you've just mentioned here, that I know we have a chuckle and a giggle because, you know, you're like, oh, we were trying to like really do all this like shocking stuff when it came to, you know, like just even the aesthetic space. No, but the thing is, the fact that you actually even think like that is already, I can see the whole progression of thing. And I think you are pushing a space that is hasn't been discovered or explored, at least for yourself, right? But you're also now including the environment around you, and you want to do something new. And I think that's what it is to be creative, right? Is to do something that you can't like replicate, because it's this thing that's currently happening within this moment, I think, you know, and so I get it. I really get it now. And I think,
yeah, it was cool. It was cool the way you said it, because at first you said that like I don't like to be restricted, but actually, yeah, it's true that I'm fine to be restricted. I kind of enjoy the restriction. I think the creativity can exist inside of it, but it's true that at a moment you kind of get uh, bored staying in one place, and so once it's taken its course, you need to keep on moving. But yeah, what is creativity? No, you were saying something about. You were saying something. I think I cut you off.
well,
To
no,
agree.
that's fine. So, well, I think where I sort of, you know, wanted to maybe sort of touch base upon were there are many things, and one of the first things that sort of surprised me was, you know, I'm kind of going to work backwards a little bit, but
Hmm.
you mentioned about cabaret and how it's different from theater in the sense that it's all happening right there.
Yeah,
It's you're in
immediately.
character, everybody is there immediately.
Mm.
I never knew that that wasn't the case for theater. This is only something that I'm learning, but when you said that, it made me realize, oh, there is a build up, isn't there? Like when it comes
Mm.
to sitting in a theater show. And I mean, I've only done a couple of theater shows, so I can't, or maybe three, but I can't really draw from too much like experience and compare. But when you said that, I kind of did notice that there is this sort of thing, and
Yeah.
I felt a little bit of a struggle within myself as well, because I like to sort of just be like, I'm here, I'm there, like, you
Mm.
know what I mean?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
yeah, okay, so that's something that
Yeah.
I'm
No, I know.
just learning.
It's like theater.
Yeah.
Theater. I think we were brought up with the idea that theater is the everything, but it's just another little context. You know, it's another niche place where people who understand the codes of theater go to watch theater. Maybe at a time in the past, of course, it was more popular. It was more for everybody. But I think today theater is more controlled for people who understand theater. The same way that opera is like this. It's only for people who understand opera, you know, and so it has all these codes uh, that are going to inform the way you create. You're aware that people get all dressed up, arrive at the foyer of the theater, you know, take their drink, go sit in the chair. And once they sit in their chair, everyone's phones will be turned off, the lights will be turned off, and all the focus goes there. So you're going to create for that setting, but sometimes, yeah, an idea doesn't need to. Sometimes, you know, that's why cabaret is quite liberating, because you can work deeply on a
Mm,
character, but it's just a little moment. You know, 5 minutes. It's okay. You come up with the outfit.
mm.
You come up with what you're going to do. A couple of steps, a couple of ideas, and then you drop it and you move on to a new character the next show. You know. So yeah.
You mentioned that in Paris, it's quite heavily focused around sort of classical training and background. And,
Mm,
you know, Australia, it seems as though, you know, it's heavily revolved around this kind of a Stedford competition scene. And
mm,
not that there's anything bad with any of that, but do you sometimes feel, you know, seeing, you know, the progression of from where you've started to where you are now, you're exploring all these other areas of you know, of the industry, so to speak,
mm,
but more so within your own creative expression, and finding ways to be able to make a living with that, which I think is the
mm,
hardest. Well, for me, has been a very hard struggle. Let alone people who are yet to sort of really get there. But once you even get there and you start earning an income and getting to do this thing that you love to do, and working professionally, it's for me, I have struggled to find that balance of being
mm,
able to be fulfilled, and you know, I'm going to be straight up honest, man. It's fear. It has been fear for me to be able to explore these other areas, but also to, you know, and this is probably kind of relating back to this whole part of my, you know, area where I felt like we connected a bit when I was going through my dark periods of my life. You know, certain things happen, you know, life sort of takes a different course, and you know, you sort of got to make sort of decisions based upon the things that are there with you in that moment. And sometimes I feel like that I have made decisions that weren't as artistically the best, but you know, sometimes you got to make things work as well. And I know that there are many people who are going through those types of struggles to be able to, you know, find this sense of not selling yourself, you know, which I think we struggle so hard. Like you said, you find this thing that you love, and then, you know, then you find yourself doing it for like seven shows a week or whatever, and you can kind of get burnt out a little bit. And so, you know, to hear you like constantly always figuring out those spaces is like, wow. Like, I feel like we need to know how to do that more and be implied to the younger generations and the kids who are growing up, you know, in these spaces of dance. Because the thing is, you can't get yourself in through the world just by being a dancer. Let's look at dance in itself, because we're not just, we learn it as movement, but the thing that I feel like is super lacking is this expression that we are all individuals, and with that comes this creativity and this need to be able to express, and that is that huge major part that I feel is missing of that, bridging that gap between you're a phenomenal, amazing dancer, and now you got to, in order to be able to become, now you want to make money doing this thing, well, you got to know how to sell your inner expression and let that communicate and translate with this outer world. And even when you get there, then you're still now confined by the construct of what the industry is, and you got to now continue to find that healthy balance if you choose to do so. You don't have to. I mean, there's nothing wrong with not having to find that balance, but you know, some people, I don't think everyone is built and wired the way perhaps you are, or maybe they are, they just haven't yet been able to explore it, or maybe they feel that they have to work within this framework, right? I see people all the time who are in theater that just do show after show after show, and I kind of go, man, I wish I was a little bit built more like that. I feel like life would be so much more easier, but there is this thing inside of me that I always struggle with, and I can't deny that feeling of just going, I need to do something crazy and new today. I want to maybe do a really bad show because I've never done a bad show.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I do that as well. Do a mock-up show. That's fun. You have to feel something. You know exactly. I understand exactly what the problematic that you're bringing up is. Like, how are we supposed to simultaneously feel fulfilled by artistically by what we are doing, at the same time as juggling the necessary efforts we have to make in order to compromise ourselves to make money and use our art in different jobs, which will require us not to express ourselves. That's not the point. Like my job, if I'm doing a fashion campaign, or if I'm in a theater show or cabaret, whatever, it's not really to express myself. Almost everything that I'm doing for money, I have to accept that I do in service to someone else's vision, and that can be very tiring, because if you never get to say what you want to say, and you have a lot of creativity, a lot of energy that you've put into creating your own universe, your own style, and it's just being put to these projects that are a bit it's not even that they're uninteresting. Like, you could do the most interesting projects in the world, if it's not coming from your soul, it's still going to be just this creative problem solving rather than total artistic expression. But I do believe that it is very possible and fun to live that life of expressing yourself inside of the boundaries of whatever the project is. So, like, when when I do
Yeah.
any job, even if it's a commercial, like think of the most um, uh, oppressive dance condition you could think of, like the commercial job where everyone has to be fucking exactly the same. Um, and even inside of that sort of a condition, you are able to insert yourself, right? So if I have a choreography that's very precise, I still play around on myself, as you described in Carmen. Okay, well, if it's like to the right, to the left, but I'm gonna make this feel like that. I'm gonna remember it like that. I'm gonna pull my shoulder just a little bit more. It still respects the rules of the choreographer because I'm not gonna try to stand out too much, but I enjoy to feel it like that. And I feel good when myself and Chris, who's next to me, we're going to dance at the same time. And that is my creative expression inside of someone else's project. So I have to be aware of those rules in order to have fun with it. And I think that is kind of the key. You have to not be militant about the fact that you have to express yourself absolutely every time. No, I mean, you have to know that in certain projects, your creativity, it's just part of the bigger image. And so if you're trying to express yourself there, then first of all, it's going to be lost. No one is going to appreciate that there. And it's even going to distract from the overall effect of what you're trying to do. You know, if I'm supposed to be with three other guys on stage and we all do the choreo at the same time, and I decide to express myself at that moment, it will ruin the effect of all four capes going at the same time. You know, so you gotta involve yourself in projects that you find fun already, if you want to work like that. Okay, so that's how I see it. First of all, the other way is to be a real artist. But to be a real artist, that means you're a lot more vulnerable. You take many more risks in your life. You're not going to have the same money, luxury life that we enjoy as dancers in certain situations once you make it. Because I like that. It's true that I battle with this same problem that you're talking about. I know what you mean. I know, but I enjoy to work with celebrities or with big fashion houses where there is a nice hotel or there is a fancy table of treats at my lunch break. You know, I like this kind of lifestyle, and that is not going to come from me trying to express what I want to express. You know, I know the life of an artist. It's much more solitary. You know, and so it will, maybe my life will be more difficult as an artist if I want to totally express like that. But so I often choose to just make myself useful for different people's projects. Like that, you have you can be a bit more relaxed. But maybe that's not true. I mean, I'm always going back and forth. I recently as well, and maybe I'm going too quick because I think there's a few things that we want to say about what I was just saying now. But anyway, I'll say anyway. I met this guy in Korea. I was in Korea, in Seoul last year, twice. And there's a guy I met, and he inspired me a lot because I thought growing up in Australia, if I want to create art, I need to go to Europe or I need to go somewhere else. I can't just be in Australia where I grew up, where everyone's doing dance competitions or this, that. But this guy I met in Korea, he just works by himself. You know, he collects fish and he makes sculptures and paintings and he dances. And he was just doing it to himself. He wasn't trying to sell it. He wasn't going overseas. He wasn't trying to meet this person or that person or anything. Just by himself. Work every day. And then now, after years and years of creating his own universe, people from overseas, they contact him. Now, everyone, I spent the last 8 years of my life traveling Europe, trying to meet as many people as I can. This guy doesn't travel at all. He knows everybody that I met just through online. From creating his own universe, everybody comes to him. You know, so this is also like I think there's the two ways. You know, that's how I see it. There's one way where you can be like using your art creatively. Let's call it the creative entrepreneur. You know, someone who uses their creativity and their skills in order to make money and live a nice life for themselves that they enjoy. Right? That's the creative entrepreneur, or the artist who is going to focus just on making their art. Okay, if you want to make art, what's important is time and resources. And so often it's about, you know, you're not trying to chase the world. You're not trying to get the special things. You just try to make the best object that you can.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's how I see that.
That's so amazing and fascinating that you mentioned that about that guy in Korea. And it sounds as though he's tapping into this space. And I haven't read the book, so I'm not going to pretend like I know it. But you've probably heard it as well. It's a Japanese philosophy saying called ikigai,
Hmm.
where it's about, yeah, you're aware of, like, when you
Yeah,
said
yeah,
the creative entrepreneur. Yeah.
yeah.
uh
Remind me exactly what ikigai is, because I've looked it up a second ago. Hold on. How's it spelled again?
I
Ikigai.
kind of want to, yeah, bring it up. But it's this balance where with Japan, they're so focused on becoming mastery of whatever it is that they're doing.
Hmm.
And it's about kind of now being paid handsomely as well, of doing something that you feel that you are applying with whatever your skills are, but also having this sense of purpose because maybe, you're bringing some kind of value and worth into the community. And so it's this healthy balance of everything. And that's that whole philosophy of saying, of coming in, of Ikigai. And when you say creative entrepreneur, yeah, I feel like that kind of really aligns with with that kind of philosophy
Mm.
there.
Yeah,
But I think
and
a
I think
lot
it's
of
the
the
most possible
time,
for
yeah,
dance. Oh, no, you go.
yeah, no, 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 go. Oh, I think a lot of the time that is the whole thing that we're trying to get to, but I don't think we
Hmm.
realize it, and we
Hmm.
might just sell ourselves short. And because I haven't ever had to really, I've never really known how to sort of earn income outside of dance, because it was just like, it just happened. I was like, oh, now I'm
Hmm.
on this job. Oh, I didn't even know that I didn't even know you can make a
Hmm.
living with dance. I never
Hmm.
planned to be a dancer ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, let's just keep going. And then my whole philosophy at the very start was, if I can, get by, then I'm happy days. I'm blessed. But then you get
Hmm.
older, and then you're kind of like, well,
You're like,
you're
oh,
like,
maybe I want to do,
I don't know
maybe I
if
want to do more.
but yeah. So I totally understand, man. Where you kind of, yeah, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with wanting a life that that does sort of bring you, you know, some kind of like I guess, well, I want to find the right words here. A healthy, like a wealthy, balanced life of, of just, whatever it is that your needs are. We all have these different things that we need in our life. And I think when you do think about it strictly from this artistic sense, sometimes I feel like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking about, money, or like,
Mm.
I think I've personally fallen in trap of that thinking sometimes. And even on jobs, I have found it difficult to talk about money, dude. It's like,
Mm.
I've almost felt like, oh, how dare you to think about like money, in the sense that, you should be grateful that you are like
Mm.
getting to do what you love, because
Hmm.
nobody
Hmm.
does. And it's like,
Hmm.
I think there's a different way to sort of, at least approach this conversation, or have a look, there's a different perspective. But I feel like often too much we scared to sort of even say something that sits alignment outside of the job, because we're so fearful of, oh, if I say this, then, I'm not going to, perhaps, you know, get this next job. Or I'm kind of looking at it from a
Mm.
business perspective now.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
yeah,
do you mind kind of maybe jumping in on how, like, what you think is the best way to navigate towards this thing? Because you've reached this place of, I feel like, of this kind of ikigai, man, of this
yeah.
creative
Cool.
entrepreneur thing. Yeah, you
Yeah,
have,
yeah,
bro.
yeah,
You really
yeah.
have.
Cool. Yeah. Well, um, I mean, I think that no matter, I definitely feel like I've advanced, and I feel like when I felt something had been conquered, I moved forwards. I've never had trouble to find work or to create work for myself. Um, and I've always, every job I've done, I've tried to find some kind of sense of fulfillment from that job, no matter what it is. If it's a really unfulfilling or even shameful job, which comes up sometimes, then I'll take fulfillment from sharing with the people on the job, or funny memories, that sort of a feeling as well. But generally, I try to do the best I can for everything, and that makes it more fun. I've spoken to people who say, "Oh yeah," they say, "I'm lazy. I don't want to like to try to rehearse the thing. It's just for some job. Who cares?" But I do believe that I'm going to have more fun if I do it to the best of my ability. That's what makes the whole process fun. Um, so sometimes I'll even add extra work to myself on something that isn't necessary. Um, but,
Ah.
because it's more fun for me, and it's kind of like, I guess, a selfish way. No, I think it's fine to do that. That's a good thing to do. But yeah,
Yeah.
but I think no matter how far you go, like, so now I'm working in things that I would have been very excited about, in the past, and I think no matter what, I still have that same feeling, uh, which is that I'm not expressing enough of myself, because it's constantly inside of the limitations of creativity. But I still have fun every time I do it, and I get excited every time I get a job that I haven't done before, or a kind of a new context, a new theater, or a new fashion house. And it's kind of this, yeah, it's this chase that I enjoy, but it's also never probably going to end unless I make some kind of a difference in the way I do it. Because otherwise, what? I keep on, you do new jobs, you're always trying to be passionate about it, but then you're still not totally expressing yourself, because it's always what, for a commercial, for some, that's not what I want to say. Um, but further, I think, okay, we could also, I think what's interesting for your audience is to like just genuine, like real advice, really tangible advice on um, uh, how to not feel oppressed by all this and find your own artistry inside of all the different jobs that are available for dancers. And I think there the most important is to not let your artistic expression exist through the scope of just one style or genre, because it's already, when it has a set of rules, then it's cannot be your expression. You can take from, so you should take from everything you can, but um, if your expression is relying on another set of rules and codes to exist, then you're always stuck there. Whereas if you open yourself up to say, okay, I like this, I like that, and you get in touch with your own taste, then you will constantly have inspiration, and so you will feel less um, like a sellout, because you'll be fine to sell out because your expression will already be engaged. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking shit. Maybe we're
No,
getting too.
no. I can definitely understand, how if you just try to push being creative on a job, how, A, for starters, you're kind of not respecting the creativity of the piece itself, which I think is very
Mm,
important professionally, but also,
mm,
like you said too, the whole piece as well, like kind of being coming together, you sort of lose sight of whatever that is too. Um,
mm.
but yeah, like I think, yeah,
Yeah, it feels good to be a part of the
I've,
whole as well. This is the thing that people forget. Like,
yeah.
it's not all about being this brilliant genius artist. A lot of the fun
Mhm.
is feeling connected. The time sometimes you come off stage and you're like, "Pfft, okay, whatever, that didn't feel that interesting." And sometimes you come off stage like hugging your mates, like, that was fucking sick. And that feeling is not going to come if you're being selfish about trying to be this brilliant dancer or brilliant anything. You have to just be connected with whoever's with you on that project. And it's the same thing in like for a commercial dance project to working as the choreographer on some kind of a shoot, because you have to work with the director, you have to work with the talent, the music, there's all these different elements, the stylist, you know. So it's always about homogeny, service to the project, and then you can feel at least good about your part inside of it.
I want to come back to that guy that you were inspired by, right?
Mm.
So how was he able to now draw, I guess, people to him in that sense of what it is that he was
Just
doing? Did you get to us yet?
just because it's so unique, it's so rich, his universe, and the richness of his universe comes from the constant isolated work. You know, he's by himself, he stays in his own mind about his work, and so his influences are not uh, based around a culture or a context of a forum or a community. It's just his imagination unbridled, so he can take
Wow.
he creates his own rules that don't exist for anyone else. So we see, suddenly you watch just one video or something, oh, what is this? I've never seen this before. And it gives you
Wow.
that feeling, and so people go chase it. You know, he grew up. The way he described it to me was that he grew up quite lonely child, by himself a lot. He's lived a kind of out. I don't think it was a forest, but in nature. So he would, you know, imitate nature a lot as a child. So his dance is kind of based on the movement of a fish, you know, and he'll describe about a fish will be no movement at all, and then you know, and so he imitates that feeling in his body.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And this just comes from his own meditation and what he likes, you know. So each of us have our own perspective, our own taste, things that we intuit, and it it is about focusing on those things that we like, and finding how to put it into our body to create an object in the real world that can explain to someone else what we see. So when I look at the fish, maybe I just see boring fish, but when he looks at the fish, he sees something, the way it moves, ba, ba, ba. And so then when he dances, I get to see what he sees, you know? Um, and yeah, I think that's it. That's literally all it is. It's amazing. He just came to France not long ago because he wrote, directed, and starred in this film with this. He collaborated with a Canadian director, and it was incredible. And now they're going to. He's got other projects going on in Spain, in Amsterdam, and this is all from staying focused in his thing. He's even getting Zara campaigns and stuff, and this is all from staying focused on your thing. So
Wow.
I think it's always the best advice is work on your own vision of what you want to create, and eventually you'll arrive at something so unique that it will be impossible to compete against. You know, and you'll be able to live the creative entrepreneur life at the same time as you live your artist life.
Um, Man, that that is so. It's really. I can almost like see it. You know, you explaining that to me. For me to already be able to have this feeling and see it is already showing just how powerful whatever that thing is that he is tapped into. You know, to be able
Mm,
to effectively communicate that with the world. You know what I mean?
mm,
So yeah, I love just even hearing that about him. But what I was going to say was is that, you know, immediately I hear about that, and my mind can't help but go, oh, like, you know, how do I get there? And I want to just share a little bit about sort of my own sort of personal struggles when it has come to sort of I guess pursuing or trying to achieve some kind of like goal or success, or this idea perhaps that I have in my mind.
mhm,
And really recently, I went to this service, and they were talking about platforms and pillars, and it really struck a chord with me, man. It was like just then when you said that thing that that guy has been doing, immediately it's like I want to now start to like sort of kind of work towards that idea of what that thing is. And it's like I'm creating this sort of like platform, and this whole saying of like chasing platforms versus pillars was that like every day now, because of social media, everybody has a platform, and they're able to now tap into this space where you can now connect with the rest of the world, which is amazing. But he was saying that like the difference between platforms and pillars is that platforms are built upon the strength of others, and that, you know, you don't necessarily stand the test of time if you are just kind of pursuing platforms. Often, you know, if there are low seasons and whatnot, they don't stand the test of times. Whereas pillars, it's kind of like a tree where it's deeply rooted. There is a foundation involved, and trees naturally become platforms and naturally become a voice, or he was saying that like platforms are built on pillars, right? And I feel like often too much, it's great that we can draw inspiration like this, but I think the way that we sort of, I guess, sometimes can get in the trap of is approaching it of going, I want that thing now. You know what I mean? Instead of understanding what it is to knowing how he got there, which is, it sounds as though this person has really spent many years, like you talked about, his loneliness of growing up, and that is what has shaped his pillar to finally find form and expression, to now it's kind of started to now draw attention to all these people because it's bearing fruit. You know, we're now, it's so rooted. He's worked on all these things. Like you said, he's spent time. I'm not saying that you have to go isolate yourself. That's not what I'm getting here. But he's now have found this full expression of who he is as a kind of a being, and it's now drawing people in. And so that's what I kind of wanted to sort of touch, was that like recently I realized within myself that I was waking up every morning pursuing this thing that was an amazing idea, right? And I was obsessed and possessed by this idea, actually, at one point in my life where I didn't sleep for days. But then I realized I didn't know that I was chasing this idea for so long every day. I'm talking years now, man. And then when I heard this service of platforms and pillars, it completely shook my world, and I started crying. Because I realized how much I wasn't focusing my own pillar on my own lack of spaces that were to be explored, the imbalances within myself, the things that really needed to be attended to, and give just my own undivided attention and just love or whatever, you know, to build it, man. And I think the world today, bro, I'm kind of going to a different space now, but the world today is now so focused on pursuing platforms, and no one's sitting here talking about, you know, building pillars, man. And I think, I feel like, you know,
Pat, it's very,
you have created a system for your pillar. I feel like. I feel like you've created a system of that, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I see it as that. Yeah. You know, yeah. And I feel like your system is to constantly push boundaries and grow. And that is now ingrained in you, which is now, I feel like it's so easy for you to now explore professional spaces and to be able to figure out how to earn income, because it's been now such a part of your programming, and man, like, can you please sort of like maybe fill in on and step in on that for people who maybe yet to sort of really maybe, you know, who might be wanting to know more about that?
Yeah. I think it's difficult to have longevity if your success is based around a platform. instead of a pillar, which is kind of what you're already saying. I think I don't know how to go about chasing a pillar instead of a platform necessarily. Um, I just know that you you have to be okay with maybe none of the validation from the platform, because it's nice to arrive on a platform when it's already a platform. Uh, because there's already a bunch of things going on there, and people say, "Oh, wow, nice, you're here on the platform too," and so you have this immediate recognition. Um, and oftentimes, like, the pillar is invisible to everyone else, and you have to be fine with that, because otherwise you end up trying to transform your pillar into a platform. Um, and then again, you're not focused on the pillar. So there has to be this kind of letting go of validation. I think this is something that I came to personally through, like, the concept of biting. Or, like, when I was younger, I used to get really angry because I thought I had things that were original that I spent time working on, and then I would see people like maybe what I deemed as, I don't think people are really copying. It's just natural way the culture shifts onto the people around you. But in my teenage mind, I'm like, oh yeah, they're stealing my thing, and so then they get all the validation for my own originality, and that was something that made me angry. But then when I realized, okay, what I'm doing is going to create stuff anyway. It generates these differences in the people around me. That's beautiful. I'm going to be happy just knowing that I made that up. And it doesn't matter if I have anyone know what I made up, because I will have the skill afterwards to change it again into something new. And the person who stole an idea to be on the platform, so to speak, they are not going to be able to build on it and create a pillar from that information. So you have to let go of the platform in order to keep adding more platforms onto your pillar. Huh? How's that? No,
I love that. Yeah. No, but I think what you've just said too as well has kind of, I feel like sometimes I've gotten definitely into the trap of that, of when you're like, you find like you found this creative expression and you're like, oh yeah, I tapped into that. And you feel like this is my thing, and like I want everybody to know that this is my thing and get recognition. And I do believe it's important to give recognition when there has been a direct.
It's very good to give. It's just important
like
to not need to get.
Biting to not need to get, yeah. But it's interesting when you say like this need to get, because I feel like it comes sometimes. It's because we believe that is inherently ours, and I don't know this. This is just a philosophy, and I hear some people talking about the creative space, is that it's actually up for grab for anyone, and that like it isn't your own. It's like this kind of like cosmic space that is always in a flux, and you've just so happened to tune into it because it's like almost it's a collective it's a collectiveness. It's a collective consciousness. I don't want to use that word too much.
But it's good. It's the correct word.
What I find fascinating, but like for instance, what are the odds for like, in history where you've had two people inventing something at the same time, like Einstein and who was it? I think there's someone. No, sorry, not Einstein. Sorry,
not Einstein. You're talking about
Edison,
yeah.
And there was somebody else though. They were inventing the light bulb at the same time, simultaneously. And have you noticed that? Like, what is that thing? What's that phenomenon?
Well, I don't know, but I think you're already talking about it's a collective consciousness or whatever. There's this artist that I've been loving lately. His name's Peter Saul, and he's got a cool story because he was an American guy who moved to Europe when he was fairly young, and he was painting very isolated from the rest of the world. But he kind of accidentally came up with pop art at the same time as all these other as the whole school of pop art was happening in America. So he's by himself making pop art, copying all of the American advertisements, thinking that he's got his own style, only to discover that actually this whole time in America, there's like a whole movement of artists that are doing the same kinds of subject matter as him, even if he's on the other side of the world. But yeah, that sort of thing that exists. I think it's just like we have to embrace it. I think before, even when I was younger and I was in Australia, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm a dance artist. I like to mix styles, and I'm not restricted by any specific genre. So I'm going to mix this. That's my art. But actually, I moved to Europe because I see so many people doing that. Like, it's almost a joke now when you meet other dancers. You say, "Hey, what's your style?" But everyone knows that no one can say, "Oh yeah, my style is." I mean, there's some people who are like, "I'm a popper, I'm a whacker, I'm a ballet dancer." But generally today, when we look around the world, basically everyone of our generation is taking little keys from different styles of dance, from street dance and jazz and choreography, and mixing it together to come up kind of with the thing that they like, you know? So that's already the same. That's the same thing as what we thought was so special when we were young. Actually, everyone's doing it. So we exist as a part of like a generation of thinkers because we, at the same time, I think it's just that history is a chain. And so, yeah, that's, but while we talked about that, there you go.
Well, yeah, sorry, man. Cause it's just like, I just found it really, interesting about like, you know, I guess, well, I was talking about my own struggles, man, and like kind of not realizing, the validation that I'm needing, but perhaps it's because now I'm trying to, approach it from, you know, a professional and a business perspective. And maybe there is this race in order to be able to get there before that other person gets there. But if you're not looking at it from that angle, maybe it's fine because like, hey, you know, you get that fulfillment. But I think there is some sort of sadness when you can't, and I think that's what it is. It's beautiful to be able to create things on your own, but then for that to be shared and I think that's that whole like, you know, that feeling of feeling connected now of not just, it's just not the only thing now. Now we get to all be in this thing together and you know, there, yeah.
You're talking about fear. Are you talking about like, is it the fear to share this desire to create deeply, like the vulnerability of being an artist? Or is it what exactly are you referring to when you talk about that fear? Or how was it for you?
For me, I don't think it's rejection. It's rejection, bro. That's what it is. It's the fear of rejection. That's what it comes down to.
Fear of rejection in your artistic expression, or fear of rejection not in the professional sense. It's the fear of rejection, the deep. This is my art, and no one will like what I do, and it's lame.
Maybe it is more from a professional standpoint, but also too, it's more to do with, I guess, it's the freaking identity, man. And it's this like whole persona that I've like built up, and now I'm kind of going into this other part of the segment of this show, which is kind of like dealing and grasping with the identity of what we've created, built upon our artistry and what we've done, you know, professionally and whatnot. And personally now I have been, you know, kind of exploring this space of going, who am I again? Not just like within myself, but sort of in relation to the world. And, you know, I have been this like dancer for so long, but it's not just like my own personal relationship with that, but how other people have also seen me too has been a little bit of a struggle. But to go back to what it is that you're saying, of that fear and maybe the rejection and all that kind of stuff is just that, like, it's just straight up just it's just ego, isn't it? Of kind of like, I've built up this sort of like this image of myself or reputation, because I think that is very important to be able to succeed professionally in the corporate world as well, is to have that. And that is very important. And now I'm finding finding myself where it's like, now I want to still, use that part of me and to now explore ways to be able to now create things that I really like, but then also to make a business out of it, because that is an aspect that we live in this space of the world that is the system, and to now kind of do it now openly, figuring it out within the social space now, because it's not something that I really like to talk about in the show, but I'm been working in that space of trying to understand how do I make this successful as well with what I'm doing. Has been very awkward, has been challenging, and it's just been a constant bruising of the ego, which is probably not a bad thing. But I think there is possibly, maybe I am looking at it not too much in depth, but that has been a painful thing as well, of like going, it's the thoughts and opinions of others, man, of what they think. And I think you really don't care. I don't know, maybe you do, but I feel like you don't care about how you express. You're like, this is me right now, and that's okay, because I'm being authentically myself. However, if you wanted to monetize that and then people don't, I guess, respond, would you feel a little bit maybe, I got to reassess what it is that I'm doing? Or would you feel like, maybe, would you start questioning and doubting yourself?
Difficult to say, because I don't really do it very often. I stick generally in this creative entrepreneur world. Like, there's a couple of times where I've dared to try to share myself totally. But if I'm being totally honest, I feel like I've been kind of not that vulnerable with that. I think I've been focusing more on enjoying myself on the jobs, and there's things that I want to express that I don't, because I have the same fear. I think everybody has the same fear, for sure. It's like you see other people doing something that you want to, not the same way. It's not you want to steal their thing, but you want to be in that position. You want to be creating at that level. And you don't, then you put some kind of big importance on a personal project just to make this project far too complicated or big in your mind to actually achieve. So you end up just doing nothing. That's kind of was my story for a long time. So I think, we're afraid until we do. I think the most important is to just keep doing. I don't think that. I guess to truly monitor, because like for me it's safe. I feel safe to just wait for a new job offer or an audition or an opportunity to come up, and then set myself up as being the correct person for that job. That's like a safe place for me. What's the scary place for me is to go, hey, call up my friends and say, you know what, I want you to do this project for me. Would you do that for me? I feel embarrassed. Or if they ask them, I don't want to waste their time. I want to make sure that it's really the project that's going to change everyone's life. Otherwise, I'm not going to ask anyone, And it's like, what the fuck? You just have to do, in fact. And it's this crazy fear that you just end up wasting time. You just have to keep going. It's not going to be amazing immediately. So I think if I take that leap to try to monetize some kind of my art, I wouldn't be discouraged by it not working at first. I would be proud of myself just for having started for once, because it's like I feel like I've spent a lot of my life just coming up with the idea to do something and then not putting myself in the vulnerable position, which is why, full circle, when I'm talking about too much fun or something, I underestimated how special it was, because we were doing it. That's what we were doing every week, no problem. We were coming up with what was coming out of our hearts, and we had this simple outlet for our creativity in the day-to-day. That was just this constant work and a constant exchange with an audience that existed. I don't think, honestly, if I'm being truthful, I don't think I ever found that back in the same way as I had as a teenager. Maybe that's just my teenage mind romanticizing that period. But ever since I felt more concentrated on money, on responsibility, on professionalism, and less this immediacy between my imagination and an audience, you know. But there's a b-boy who says something quite good. I don't remember where he said it, but he said something like, "Everybody is going to be whack sometimes. You're going to be whack sometimes.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes you're going to go onto the floor
Yeah.
and you're going to be whack. No one, no b-boy ever, no one can avoid that. So you may as well fucking put yourself 100% into it, because you're going to be whack anyway. You may as well give yourself the chance to do something good, accept the whackness, you know. I fucked that one up, you know. Even for me, this podcast is an example of that. Before, like when I was very young, I was very confident with public speaking and whatever, and then growing older, you start to gain anxieties or insecurities, and I became quite uncomfortable to speak on camera. I felt like a lot of pressure to say something intelligent or interesting according to the subject, and it's about letting it go. Like sometimes I'm going to say something stupid, or I'm going to lose track and feel nervous for a second in this conversation, but by just talking with you, looking at you again, then I forget and I say something interesting. So you have to give yourself that chance. That's how I see what we're talking.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned about that b-boy saying about, you know, we're all going to be whack sometimes, man. And I got to sort of just like maybe dial in for like the dancers who are aspiring or who are trying to really make it there, or, you know, I remember, man, not that long ago, I recently went, not recently, it was a few years ago, but I was in the class, I think it was Keone, and Keone Madrid and that. And I remember they were performing. They were doing their piece, right? I think we were learning someone else's choreography, and they got asked to do it. And yeah, no, filming culture was there, but we're all just peers now, like, you know, watching, going like bright eyed, like going, wow, like we get to watch this thing right now. You know, it's like, amazing. And I remember she started, right? She started and then clunked it.
Yeah.
And then was like, oh, I want to start again. Can I please start again? And honestly, I had this crazy, like just mind blown moment of going, wow, even someone at that caliber to see it was so humbling, bro. And to see the organic way of how something what we see as perfect isn't actually perfect. It's like there was this, like you said, I wouldn't want to call it whackness, but that is like so important to acknowledge.
Cockiness is also a good way to say it.
But I went, why am I always trying to be freaking perfect? I get like when you're on a job, and I think maybe this has all stemmed from live television and the culture of maybe the professional world of being a commercial dancer, especially in live television, is there's no room for error ever. Because I've seen it, man. Someone makes a mistake, that person's not on the job again. And it's like, whoa, that's the reality. And, you know, Australia, we'd have very limited positions. You know what? You get it, bro. In Australia, there's only this many amount of people. There is a job that is top of the bill, and you're either on that bill or you're not. And, you know, if you make a mistake, you're done for, man. And so it's like, and I think, exactly, you're done. And I think that is such like, and you can't be mad about it because that is the game. But I think it has programmed me into a way of going perfect every time. And then that has kind of developed into other anxieties, man. But anyways, what were you saying?
Well, no, that's interesting. That made me think of other things. I think like perfection is a concept that I have changed in my mind about what that perfection means. And for me, perfection is like to not try to enter and exit and enjoy myself the whole way, you know. And I think the more we try to be perfect, like, okay, I bring back to that show I did. I did this show, the Jean Paul Gaultier Fashion Freak Show. It was this show that I did in Paris. I did 7 shows a week, and I did, I think, 200 and something shows in total, which is the biggest thing I've ever done. And I think I did about 5 shows that I was happy with. And I think the rest of them, I was like often in my head, like angry at myself for not doing a good job. Like it wasn't genuine. Like I wasn't, I'm a better dancer than that. I can't believe, and it's like, what are you doing? And then when you let go of all this and you're just enjoying yourself, then there's not a single move that goes wrong. Like you can do no wrong because you're inside of the flow. And, yeah, I think that wanting to do it perfect is the exact thing that ruins the perfection every time. You're already perfect. You have to be present. I think this is, yeah, something that we say a lot, but I think it's very true. And yeah, perfection doesn't exist. I mean, if it does, it can only exist in one go. You can't constantly be perfect. You just have perfection for a moment, when you're in tune with yourself. But I think it's impossible. I actually think it's impossible to do it perfectly, or even to understand things perfectly until we die. Then we understand.
Speaking of dying,
Yeah.
so the podcast, this is called the dancer dies twice, right?
Hmm.
And it's you probably may be aware of the Martha Graham. She said this, and I didn't know she said this. Oscar actually told me, and I was like, oh, true, because this I think obviously she was a retired dancer.
Well,
Someone said it to me. Obviously, I was probably expressing how I was feeling, and they're like, "Oh, the dancer dies twice," you know.
yeah.
But what I've learned from you, man, about having
Hmm.
this entire conversation has kind of really sort of made me see this completely differently, because from your experience and your way of moving and navigating, your dancing, or it's more so your artistry, is that like perhaps the dancer does die, but it seems though the artist just continues to live on, right? That's kind of what I'm sort of like gathering from you. It's just always taking on these different forms. But if we strictly just look at it from a performance perspective of like, I think this is where dancers can really hype. We can relate with like Olympians or like professional
Hmm.
athletes in that sense, where it's like their time is short and it's limited, and man, it's heartbreaking, man.
Yeah.
And this is for the
It's
people who are going through those changes, that want to be able to feel a little bit more sense of closure. Because when I went through my retirement, and I had a really bad injury, and so I'm actually still on workers' compensation right now, but they suggested that I speak to a sports psychologist, because I actually came to terms with my retirement with dancing, because of how bad my injury was, and had major setbacks despite all this rehab. And when I spoke to this sports psychologist, he dug it right out of me within the first 30 minutes, because I was going there uh, um, open and willing and open to talking about the grief of me not being able to dance again, because I truly believe that that's where I was, to only find out there was still layers upon this thing, and I was suppressing it because I was so sad that I wasn't able to do it anymore. I kind of quickly just buried those thoughts and feelings, and I went through a period where I didn't even want to watch anything to do with dance. I didn't want to talk to anyone who were dancers. Anything that brought up that feeling of I'm not being on stage again made me. I went through such a deep depression, and so I kind of went through. I thought which was a death back then, and I was struggling, to kind of like deal with the whole thing, to only find out, hey, maybe it's not the end. Oh shit! I think I've lost you, Pat. I'm going to have to figure out some better ways to do this. Uh, Sorry, guys, that it's just cut out here, but I'm going to try and see if Pat is able to jump back on. Perhaps his laptop might have ran out of battery, or maybe there's something going on with this platform. But I'm just going to message him right now because I feel like we'll kind of get into that tail end of the show. So let me just write here. Hey, man, we cut out. Do you want to jump back on? We'll see what he says. But guys, I may have to just end this and then just come back to it. But whilst we await for him to come back, I'm going to just keep this recording because I don't want to lose anything. I want to be safe here. And I'm just going to make myself a bit of coffee in the meantime. Out there. I don't like editing the podcast, by the way. I don't edit at all. I kind of like all the clunkiness, so to speak, man. But obviously,
you can leave it in, huh? Maybe it's charming.
I'm gonna. What do you mean? Making coffee?
Yeah. Oh. It's like the mask comes off for a second, where it's like the people aren't watching. I'm trying to get my phone to work. You're making a coffee. It's just boys being boys. But you were in the middle of something quite passionate at the moment that it cut off. So I was quite frustrated.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe you remember. Maybe you remember what you were talking about.
Yeah. I do remember, and it's a bit of a sob story, and I got to really now start to learn to find a new narrative. Do you ever find yourself, bro, when you like keep talking about the same story over and over, and I'm like, it's changing. I feel like my kind of story is changing, but it had to do with, going through injury, going through retirement, and walking into this what do you call it? This sports psychologist's room, and then I saw all these pictures of these, Olympians, right? And I went, oh, I was like, I get this now. I'm like, we share that same pain and struggle. And I was like, imagine being an Olympic athlete and you're like, they put so much hours and time and dedication into doing this thing and they finally get to this place. And then it's just like, whatever, we can't, it's impossible to on that physical performance to be able to maintain that. And I love that we've been talking a lot about the artistic space, but I think that saying there is very much, focused on the performance, the physical capabilities and abilities of a dancer there. So, how have you come to terms with, I guess, we sound so old. I sound so old.
I know.
With this, with your body, you know what I mean? But we,
no, but
truly, I do. I mean, actually, I don't know. Do you?
It's new for me. It's new for me. I'm telling you, it's brand new for me. I thought I was invincible forever. I thought, I'm young, I'm creative, I wear cool clothes. That's what's important. Doesn't matter how old I am, I'll always have skills. But it's not true. I go to jump now and I see the 18-year-olds. I'm like, oh, yeah, I can't do that. Like, I lost a whole lot of. I just stopped doing things with that part of my body. Like, my whole lower half of my body is basically not a dancer anymore. Like, I think these dancers dying a few times, like little by little. I mean, it's okay. I think for me, I kind of just took it. It was just recently. In fact, I was just doing this job and it was something I was quite excited to do because it's like a big, exciting thing. But then when I was there and I was like, oh, like everyone's like a lot younger than me. Maybe it's just time to move on a bit. Maybe you want to be more in the creative position. Maybe you want to be like behind the camera a bit more. Like, I'm wearing a headband. I'm like, I'm not sure if this is giving me the same feeling anymore. So I guess the fact that I've let many different phases in my life kind of disappear, phases that I've felt very passionately about in the past, has helped me to prepare for this moment, because I remember feeling this moment, thinking to myself, you know what, that's okay. I don't actually really want to be doing this like that. I don't have that same need to be like dancing the dance the way that I used to. Um, but yeah, it's kind of like sometimes it's yeah. What you're saying is right. The artist in you does not die. In fact, it's going to keep on growing and changing. It's just frustrating because you've put all of these hours into training a skill that deteriorates. Whereas, like, the painter can continue to paint throughout his whole life, whereas we get weaker. But we can still dance. That's the thing that is also important to say. We cannot dance as these elite athletes, but we can dance as artists.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because we have this frame of thinking about it, we're athletes. You know, it's about doing the big tricks and having the power and the strength. But if you change the way that you're performing, then yeah, you can still perform. Like, I have friends that I do cabaret with, like who are in their 50s, who still do like the best numbers ever. They're amazing. I love them because they're taking on different kinds of characters. They play with the audience's perspective on that. So there's plenty of ways we can perform once we have officially, I guess, once we've had that first death as a dancer. But it depends on the way you've created your life already, because I think there's a lot of people who work in contemporary companies, for example, where they live really like athletes. Like, they do class throughout the day. It's on very strict regiments and times and schedules. And then they do the same show every night, but their body has to be in form, blah, blah, blah. I think it would be much more difficult if you're in this sort of situation. Or again, yeah, like commercial dancing as well. It's a bit difficult. Unless you want to become a choreographer, then it's okay. You got experience, you can become a choreographer. But if you didn't really want to become a choreographer, what are you going to do? Yeah, you got to make your life difficult because as a dancer, we're so spoiled when we're young. Like, when you're young, you get to not only express yourself artistically and feel fulfilled by all that, but you're also sweating. You're with friends. There's something tactile about it. So you have the best beginning of life, just to discover that can't last forever in that same way. I don't really have an answer. I think that.
Can I?
Yeah.
Sorry, man. I think. Yeah, I'm totally with you with everything that you said. And I think, just, you know, for me on a personal level, with the pain and the sadness, there's layers to all of this as a dancer. But when we're looking at it from like a performance standpoint, I should say athletic standpoint. I think for me, what it is this like, okay, I'll tell you why I used to love X Factor, right? Is that I used to tap into this space, this energy, this I don't want to say warrior spirit, but when Joel was my opposite, we would look at each other before we went on stage. It was like, we're going to war. No, It was literally like, and I felt like I tapped into this warrior spirit, bro, of like, oh, and then when you watch like things like the Haka, and you're like, oh man, that's that same spirit. Or, you know what, bro, when I hear UFC, fighters speak from a performance perspective, they're like, I'm just putting on a show, you know, but they're fighting, you know what I mean? There's an audience there, and that thing, bro, is I think is what, to be able to tap into that thing is like, I'm craving it and I'm missing it, and I'm being drawn back to it. Whether or not my body can do it again at this age is a bit of a question mark, but I'm like, I feel like I owe it to myself to be like, fuck it. Let's see what happens, sort of thing. And you know, I kind of I'm just a little bit curious, you know, but, so
it's difficult.
So
like,
that was the sadness. Yeah. Sorry,
for sure. Where are you going to do it? Like, it's so true. We're given this opportunity to have thousands of people screaming for you, all of the pressure of the moment, and when it's not offered to you anymore, you can't really create that for yourself. I don't think. Where are you
Yeah.
going to
So
do that?
that.
I mean, I
Mm.
guess you could. You could. Um, or maybe not. Maybe we're all just.
I mean, we think about it like from like a grandmaster, right? From like kung fu or like martial arts, man. You see
Mm,
people who are like really old, man, that they maybe not be able to move like in the same sense, but they can still fight. You know what I mean?
mm.
Like,
Yeah.
maybe
Well,
it
I think the
takes
same.
all of their energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could probably do the same thing with dance. I do think we can do the same thing. Like the feeling that we have when we dance. Yeah. And we're uh, in that feeling of dancing on
Mm.
on the extremity of our own body. Right now, our body can do great things. So that extremity
Mm.
feels like big, impressive warrior. Maybe as an old man,
Mm.
we're gonna with all the pain of the body that of an entire lifetime. But if I have that same feeling of dancing, even if it's just my head, like tiny movements like this,
Mm.
ah, maybe I'll still remember that same thing, even without an audience, even without we can. And we can
Mm.
also, I think, perform in that same way. I think that something I used to say is that we adapt uh, immediately to the capacity of a performer that we're watching. If you watch a little girl that is in some dance competition, you understand the context. Okay, she's a little girl. She can kick her leg. We don't care, right? We've seen it. We understand she can kick her leg. Before she even came out, we knew she could
Mm.
kick her leg. But if you see an old
Mm.
man who's like wants to dance right now and he can barely fucking dance, but
Yes.
but he
Yeah.
like makes his way up and he's still
Yes.
hearing it and he's in his 20s, you know, that's
Yeah.
more exciting for us to watch. We're going to watch like
Yeah.
because we know what he feels as well. So at the end of the day,
Yeah.
maybe that's what it is. It's about pushing yourself. That's what it is, the warrior
Wow.
feeling. Wow.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I think and I think, bro, being male, and I'm going really right back to just, as a dancer, but being male dancers, man, I feel like I feel like it's a little bit, I don't see it very often too much, when people tap into that, like, because even when it's hip hop, I feel like it's seen as like this really hyper masculine type of thing, but it's not necessarily that warrior fighting spirit, so to
Mm.
speak. I don't really see
Yeah,
it all the time, but you know what I'm talking
agreed.
about? Like sometimes I watch people play the drums and they're like, "Ga, ga, ga, ga," and then they're like, I'm like, oh man, that's that.
Mm.
It's like a primal, I
Hmm.
don't know, thing I see.
Hmm.
But I feel like we were very lucky and fortunate to be able to sort of, kind of tap into that sort of thing. Do you feel like it's something important that we, maybe want to address, or do you just think, if it's kind of there, it's there, and maybe, the guys who are dancers who are able to maybe find expression happening. I don't even think is it expression? I don't know if it's expression. I feel like I was almost drawing something into me.
Mm.
Like it's
Mm.
weird. It was kind of like this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
because
like a
when we
tribal
were talking about,
feeling.
yeah, you know what I mean. It wasn't like a creative outlet. It was like I'm doing my
Hmm.
ancestors proud now, and I'm going to war. Like I'm. It almost felt like
Give me
that.
your power. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know, like the how to quantify the importance of this specific warrior um, energy in dance,
mm,
or how much we need. It's definitely something that's exciting. But I think there's lots of different kinds of feelings that we can express through our dance as well. That
mm,
that would deserve equal attention. Maybe
mm,
it's maybe the warrior energy is something that is difficult to maintain growing older. I already feel like I've lost a lot of warrior energy. I remember even if I was doing just a jazz choreography when I was younger, I would be doing it like
mm.
so fucking
Right.
engaged, you know. Whereas now I feel more
Right.
like I'm not trying to engage that necessarily because I feel like it can put me into friction almost. my goal now when I perform is to be
Mm,
relaxed, to be smooth, you know, to not try to fight against something, but to be present,
mm,
to converse with an audience, to be able to
mhm.
be silent and not get too nervous. But I'm trying to think if I still feel that warrior energy sometimes. Um, I don't know if it's the same warrior energy, but I think a lot about catharsis and like that state where you have maybe you have some kind of emotion you're feeling something, and then the dance pushing yourself to fatigue, to when you cannot move anymore, and then you have to still dance again. I'm sometimes in that situation, and even
Ah,
like in what I play with my partner Marie, when
mhm,
we make films together, it's a lot about that. Like we'll
mhm,
film. I mean, we haven't done one of these videos in a while, but when we first started making these videos, it was like she would film and I would dance, and we would do that for like a couple of hours probably. But for the first 2 hours, usually it's kind of like performative, a bit demonstrative, and it's not me touching anything true. And then when
mhm,
I'm too tired and I've already shot for 2 hours and I'm ready to
mm,
stop, and then she goes, "We're gonna do one more right now." The song comes on, and you're already too fucking tired, and then you
yeah.
stop trying to do anything for a camera, and you're just being, and you're inside of that energy, and you hold on to it,
Mm.
and then any movement you're doing looks good, and you're not trying, and you feel all of the, yeah, I don't know, catharsis, I guess, to push yourself to that point where you're so tired that uh,
Mm.
that it becomes more authentic because uh, you have not enough energy to fake anything. But again, I'm not sure if it's tapping that warrior thing. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to find that back. I'm hoping that you're going to be able to.
I have no idea. My back hurts right now as we speak about this, man. It's like, oh, jeez, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
dude. Fucking get, man. It's so
but
funny. Like I've been doing this job. Sorry, I'm gonna quickly tell you about this. I've been doing this job where I'm dancing on horses. Like I'm learning to dance on a horse, which is pretty fun. Like I can stand up on the horse and turn around and stuff. But I'm like so unflexible in my legs now, like so unflexible. And just to like kick over the horse's head is a fucking nightmare every time. And I look around, there's like four other dancers who are all on their horses, and they're all like, oh, the legs just popping over the top, man. And every time oh man, it's it's unavoidable. We're getting older. Um,
mm, mm.
we're gonna have to make some choices. I don't I don't know.
Um, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, have you ever had to deal with that loss of that part of your performance of your dancing, or is it something that has not even kind of
Yeah,
come into your world? Because it seems as though you're always doing things and pursuing things, and now life changes too, and now you're a father as well, bro. So like,
yeah.
is there ever really any room and time for you to be able to have feel those feelings, or
I mean, it started to come in a
of
little
going
bit
through?
lately, but I guess if I'm honest, it's
Mm,
not. It's not something that bothers me very, very much. I think because I created
mm,
things where I'll be able to express without my body. So
mm, mm,
it's a bit of a shame, and I think about this often because I'm editing a lot now as well. And editing I like because it's like choreography as well. You know, you're creating form and composition and rhythm, but it's not as fun. That's what it comes down to as dancing with your mates. You know what I
mm,
mean? Even if I could do a project that is, I have full creative control on this project, which should be more exciting for me as an artist. But really, the fun part is like sweating with your mates and fucking, that look that you described with your
mm,
friend before you go on stage. You have that rush of adrenaline. I don't get that when I'm making an edit. I just stay awake all night in front of my computer by myself, and I still get to express, but it's not the same
mm,
thing. I think it's just that we die twice because we get to Dancers fuck. Dancers die twice because they get this extra life in the beginning, which is so much more fun than what anyone else gets. You know, so it's not really like we die more. Like it's like we get something extra at the beginning, and then at a moment, I guess it runs out.
Wow,
You can't.
I love.
Yeah. What do you love?
I was saying, I just love that how you just were like, you're looking at as a bonus thing. That's awesome. I love that. I love that how you've shed light on the perspective that's so positive, bro.
Because no one gets that. Like that feeling that we know that you're talking about. It's such a specific thing to look at your best friend from the other side of a TV stage and see the look in his eyes where for him, like you two get to share this moment right now. Like you're going to move your bodies and there's going to be people screaming and you have all of that pleasure. And so I'm sure you've already looked into a lot of like the kind of pain pleasure principles that like, you know, however much pleasure we have, our body will naturally regulate itself to have that much pain as well. So you have lots of like performers and sports people. There's like I don't know how to describe any of the scientific terminology of it, but basically we have a kind of balance in our brains in the way that they function that mean that any pleasure we feel, we're going to kind of feel the same pain. You know, it's the same thing with if you're talking about like drugs, there'll be like a big up to have the big down. Or if you're talking about when you go on stage and you have this big exciting moment, afterwards you have the come down where you're at your home and there's no one screaming for you anymore and you feel bad about the fact that you don't have that pleasure anymore, you know.
Yes.
And that but it's like it's a pretty difficult thing to realize, because then you're like, what, I'm supposed to just not have as much pleasure to not have that pain? Like because people say, you should just, you should keep yourself nice and neutral, not too happy, not too sad.
No, fuck that. No. I think for me, what has gotten me through those lulls and that depletion, because you give every ounce of your being, right? To then all of a sudden, like I remember with X Factor, what was very difficult that I noticed was like, you finished, and then it's like audience claps, and then it's like pitch black, and you go and like run off stage, right? And there's only us. There's only us to bounce off with afterwards and be like, oh, whoa, you know what I mean? And then you leave. And you leave, and it was like, it's still kind of a bit like, oh, you're still kind of going through the adrenaline and whatnot. But I remember, bro, the feedback loop for me, because I think this is really important as performing artists, is the feedback loop, right? Was going back home and then seeing yourself on stage and kind of watching and like, and I felt that kind of was a bit of like this like healthy circular kind of renewable way of being able to keep going. And I noticed, bro, remember Carmen, when we did Carmen? And the main guy, bro, he was like at the end, when the audience is cheering, he was just like, for a very long time, bro. But he was like, I get it. He was absorbing.
Sink it in. Yeah, sink it in.
That was a thing. He was kind of like almost, it was that, I don't want to say recycling, but it was that whole, the feedback loop, and that had now built him up for this next one. And then when I was doing Magic Mike as well, I had any theater show, I felt like I started to understand that there was this really deep, this empty void that I needed to fill, because like, and doing drugs and alcohol wasn't the way. It was, and so I was like, what is this feedback? How do I find this feedback loop even with the show? Because sometimes, being part of a show, you don't get to get that, fulfillment sometimes. And so I found myself, man, kind of going out to the front of the auditorium, and that's where we kind of hung out as, after the show. And even though I'm still in, I'm in work mode and whatnot, and just like talking to the audience members and things like that, it was, sometimes it was draining, but then other times I would get that feedback loop of people going, oh wow, that were genuine about, hey, Like I saw you do that, and that was like, I think we really need that, bro. I think it's really important because otherwise you fall into this deep, dark depression, and you're on stage and everything is all shiny and glamorous. To go home and yeah, bro, we experience such highs, and then you're going through these really deep, dark lows, bro. So I don't know. Have you found that there is a feedback loop for you, or do you just kind of go, I'm going through these lows, and these are
Well,
beautiful, and I'm just going to let
it's
it take its course?
it's funny the way you say it because I always thought of like I definitely felt good from the positive reaction from what you give, and I love the way you say it. It's a very positive way of thinking about it because I kind of uh, I think I make myself feel guilty about focusing too much on the positive back. You know, oh, I can't let myself get distracted by that. Have to stay like just give. And in fact, I like the way you say it because I think of it like when I go on stage. Before this, I thought of it like I go on stage, I get all this energy from the audience, and then I have too much energy outside in reality. And okay, all right, what are we gonna do? And then that's it. And then it calms down, and then I just fucking wait until it comes back again. You know, which is a kind of scary, addictive mentality. You know what I mean? As opposed to the way you said it was like you go out on stage and you give. When you're on stage, it's you being generous. Ah, here you go, audience. Take a bit of this, take a bit of that, and then afterwards you go back home, you watch it on television, or you talk to the audience, and you get like a positive feedback. I think you've actually made it to you've liberated something in my mind about that. It is nice. I was thinking about like I was watching like an Instagram video of like an old person who's watching photos of their life. I'm like, yeah, true. That's like literally what you end up doing one day is just like watching it back, like remembering the things when you can't do anymore. You know, I guess the thing, dancer dies twice. So to figure out what that first death is, let's look at the death for everyone else that everyone has. You know, at a moment, everybody lose their body. You know, and you see old people like who were very like did many things with their body in their life, and then they can't move anymore. They're stuck at a table, and they live through those memories, and it's kind of like that feedback loop. And your life is kind of to give as much energy to family, to friends, to experience, so that when you're having that first or second death for dancers, you can just remember it and feel happy about what you did. And I think that's actually a beautiful way to think about it. I'm going to try to do that more.
I often remember some of the photos that we used to, take before like performances or after performances. And I remember depending on how I felt at that particular time in my moment of my career, I was a bit like, I don't want to take this photo. You know what I mean? Like, or like, I'm like, I don't care for this stuff anymore. But now that I'm getting older and I sort of like, you're right, I have my moments when I go through Facebook and I'm like, oh, I thought there was a bit more of these memories. And I'm like, and I only see little bits of it. I'm like, I get sad and I'm a bit like, oh, I wish there was a little bit more. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think we often forget, bro, that like, yeah, I don't know what it's like to be older, but I love watching and learning and hearing and from these older folks and stuff like that. And maybe I need to try to find an old performer, man, and just get some insight and just experience too. I think now speaking with you, I feel like I'm now inspired to really sort of know more about, you know what I mean, like have you ever spoken to someone who is an older? I mean, you've got parents, right, who are artists. I mean, you got so much to like draw from, from their knowledge, man. And I think it's so beautiful and amazing. Is there something that they have taught you, bro, that you might be able to like kind of enlighten us with some of their experiences of walking that path?
There definitely is. There definitely is wisdom that I have received from watching. I would say, especially my father, more than my mother. Maybe because my father's older, or he was more focused on being an artist totally. Because my mother was like, she was a silkscreen printmaker and a gallerist, or she was like an art dealer, I guess. And she did do some of her own works, but she wasn't as focused on that. Whereas my dad was a painter, you know, and he spent his whole life painting, like every day. And do you necessarily achieve? Is there a moment where you're finished? Is there a moment where you've achieved what you wanted to achieve artistically? No, not really. It's just you just keep going forever, and then one day you can't do it anymore, really. But you can do it a bit smaller, and I don't know. It's not something that anyone taught me specifically, but I guess something that you think about, you question. Oh well, why? What's the point? What's the point of making all this art? What are we trying to do? What's the point of even? We always say something like, "Oh, we have to leave something behind in this world," but no, we don't. That doesn't matter either, really.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think the more you think about it, the more you realize that everything is pointless. Or not. Maybe I take it back. I'm not sure. This is very profound questions. The question is, do I have any wisdom from my parents based on how to deal with the death? Are we talking about death?
Not
We're talking
necessarily
about
death. Just like, yeah, just life as an artist in later years, and yeah. And is there maybe something that they've kind of like taught you growing up? Maybe that is what you just said then, or maybe they've shared it with you, indirectly or something like that. Maybe you just learned it from watching them. But it sounds like you've got this real understanding that it's just a continuation of this thing where you kept kind of always going, always creating, and it might be a little bit small, it might be very big, whatever it is, that you're kind of going and doing that sort of thing until you die, I think. But
well, it's about finding something. Yeah, you're definitely supposed to find subject matter that you're interested enough in to work on forever. And that's possible. I saw that with my dad. And that doesn't mean like you're interested in this specific political idea and therefore you'll make art on one political idea forever. It's not that. It's like my father is interested in the gesture of a brushstroke and color. So that's pretty much that's what he's really exploring. That's it. And afterwards, it's like he'll do that for his whole life in many different ways. And that is fulfilling to him because he's already explored this like that. What would it look like if I did it like this time? The way my dad worked, he would set up a bunch of canvases all across his studio and he'd start with one color. So let's say he starts with black, takes a big brush, 1 or 2 strokes on every single canvas in the collection, in the series, and then wait. And then come back with his yellow, different brushstroke on each. And each time he gets to watch the manifestation of his gesture, repeating the same idea, but on, let's say, 14 different canvases in a row. And then you see the little differences between each artwork. And then you have one series. Then you compare each series. And each series has different ideas because they'll have different colors, different kind of approach, and maybe different shape of canvas. And so over the time, you get to watch. It's like having markers of your spirit, so you can look back. It's maybe more rich than a photograph memory, like something that you created at a certain period of your life. It will remind you of that. I guess. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know. It's a funny thing. When I was growing up, it was all about, it's amazing to have beautiful objects, to have good taste and to appreciate different objects. But as we get older, like my family we had to sell our factory and stuff. And we had too much art everywhere. So it's a bit strange because my family spent their whole lives collecting objects just for a moment for those objects to not fit in the new house. And like, what, you just put them all in a fucking storage somewhere? It's just about the present. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing. We collect all these objects. I don't know why exactly. It's because we want them right now, but I don't know if it's got any deeper value, or if we should just I strangely have some opinions that go against what a lot of people expect, like the art position to be. Like, I don't think that artists deserve anything in particular. Like, I don't think that we need artists as much as what everyone says we do, because what we experience from the world is already the same thing we get from art. Like, when you look at a tree or a cloud, or when you see the feeling of someone, it's already, you're getting these senses, you know. And the art is about creating this object to express what you see. But I don't know if it's for the person who's going to look at it, or if it's for you who's making it. I don't really know. But I know I have fun while I'm doing it, and I know that while I'm making art, I feel like I need to make that like that, and I want it to be good. I want it to be not good. I want it to be honest, correct to what I'm imagining, you know. And there is a moment where you feel satisfied by that. So there's got to be something there. I don't know if I can get much deeper, or because it gets a bit abstract now. Difficult to conclude.
Well, look, I mean, I just want to say, like, thank you first and foremost for being able to just, you know, share a little bit about, I guess, the background of your parents, and kind of like that whole, like, the space of, like, you understanding, oh, like, you know, you kind of see them doing all these things and collecting things to only or sort of have a moment where it's kind of going somewhere, and like, maybe, you know, I think you're touching bases upon, like, the point of things as well, and perhaps, you know, does art need to be, does it need to have, like, that whole, is it for you, and or is it for others, or is it both? And you know, it's interesting that you've kind of maybe, like, come to this place of accumulating everything that you have with your experiences to now, have that question. So yeah. No, thank you for allowing us to be able to maybe start to explore that space as well individually. That's really profound, man. But I think
I also know that I just thought of one other thing, that, like, I know that my parents my dad didn't teach me anything about art specifically growing up, but as I grew older, his art taught me many things. Just me trying to figure out his art, and then me comparing his art to my art, it made us closer. So in a lot of things where I couldn't understand him as a child, as I grew older, I have this record of his imagination, which is like a map for me to be able to take and
whoa.
Yeah, I don't know, like, understand him, I guess, or you know, maybe he's, from making art, he passed me some kind of pillar. You know,
no, yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. It
maybe
very
I'd like
much
disturbing
does
myself.
sound
Maybe, like,
that is the
art is
case.
important to that. Sorry.
No, well, yeah, like, because it's kind of, oh man, yeah, we are kind of really going there with that whole relationship of art with the world. And sometimes I look at it like, is it so beautiful and profound because we live in such, like, we live in such, what do you call it? Spaces, that especially in the Western world, right? Like I had this thought the other day. I was like, what if we lived in a world where it wasn't like this and it wasn't like a system like this and everything was just really just creative? Like even the way that you went and found food or the way that you survived was creative. Like everything was like that. All of a sudden now, if you now start to monetize that something, would we now call that art? You know what I mean? I don't know. Like if we lived in that world, it was completely flipped around and it was backwards. It was like the
yeah.
It's like now let's go. Let's take a grab of that little thing.
This fucking hippie over here, mate, setting up.
Look at this. Yeah, but do you think it is as beautiful as it is because, like, there isn't as many avenues for us to? Yeah, career is just one tiny aspect of this, but and I can only speak from my experiences living in Australia. But
definitely. I definitely think that we live in an oppressive society that forces us to find refuges from this this extremity. So that can be through art or through partying or through drugs or alcohol or through. But yeah, this is the. It's a big battle. Oh, there's one other interesting thing I think we should talk about. Is just like, sorry, what were we just saying? I just want to remember how I wanted to connect that. We were talking about.
Yeah, for sure. It was just more so, how I feel like, is it possible that art is as beautiful as it is because we live in this kind of, this framework? Before that, I was talking,
Yeah. I actually, no. I think that art would be interesting no matter what. I think that if I'm responding clearly to the question, I think that it breaks up a bit differently. There's like I got quite interested in this dichotomy between Apollo and Dionysus, the Greek gods.
Okay.
So I don't know if you know much about them, but basically, like, Apollo he represents the individual. He represents farsightedness, clarity, melody, right? He celebrates who you are, your ego, right? Whereas Dionysus is the opposite of that. He's self-forgetfulness. It's to lose yourself inside of a group, to be inside of a trance state, to follow every impulse, sexual, violent, for the good or the bad. It's everything immediate. And these two ideas are both very important to creativity and art, but they are opposites, and you cannot be working on one when you work on the other. And so often we have to, as an artist, set up who we are as an individual. We have to be able to be clear and eloquent with what we believe. We have to be able to show ourselves in our most beautiful. And then we also have to be able to forget about who we are, get lost in the group, get lost in the feeling, and let that overtake. And so I think the battle is more between these two that both involve creativity, rather than like a battle between non-creative and creative. Already within creativity itself, there's this battle going on. And I think today we live in a more of an Apollonian society than a Dionysian society. Like, it's kind of looked down upon to not have the ego. Like, we're told to not be egotistical, but we also, to be ambitious and successful, you have to celebrate your own ego. So it's like, and that's the world we live in. You have to be clear about who you are. You're the winner. You're the guy who understands blah, blah, blah. And so, I think, it would be maybe interesting to think about what it would look like, Dionysian society, instead of one that is celebrating the ego, but maybe that's that world you're talking about.
Maybe it's not as organized, or maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
wait, I'm trying to.
The idea is that it would be like more passionate. more
Right, right.
like less formality, less you have to less politeness, and so
Mm.
maybe more
Ah,
extreme pleasure, but also you'll
right.
more pain, more self-destruction,
Mm.
yeah, I guess.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, there's, I feel like we can, man, this is why I love bringing you on board because like, I know the way that your mind works and I know that I love to be able to explore these spaces,
Mm.
with you. And, I feel like as much as I love to keep going, I'm going to bring it to
Yeah.
this last segment of the show, and also too, I need to
Hmm.
figure out a different system because my iPhone, this has happened twice now. It runs, it's running, I've low on battery, and I don't want to miss this, but I've got to figure out new equipment, man. I'm only just starting out,
Yeah, no, you're
so
good. You're good.
I'm
This
doing
is it
make
was
do.
already a pleasure to do.
Um, yeah, no, because I can't fit if I want to plug this in, but then I lose the mic and stuff. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of my own thing that I got to figure out. But the last part of the segment is just pretty much when we look at dancers now, or yeah, when we look at dancers, whether they're aspiring, whether they're right now in the corporate world working, or they're maybe perhaps maybe they've going through retirement, or
Hmm.
they're
Hmm.
retired. I wouldn't say you're retired, anyways, in that sense. But like for these upcoming generations, and maybe some of these professionals or whatever, um, what would be kind of advice? And this is strictly just maybe looking at it from a success standpoint of using dance as their tool to navigate themselves
Hmm.
in the corporate world, and that that success that still can come with creative success as well, whatever
Hmm.
that is for the individual. But if you kind of were to look back at your younger self or something like that, and you could just sort of impart some kind of wisdom or words of advice or insight or whatever, what do you think that you feel you'd want to say, or an area of topic that you feel like is important to sort of explore themselves?
Um, I think like the best thing to do is to look at people who have a life or a career that you want, and to try to kind of like follow in that pathway. Um, I think you if you want to succeed commercially and you are okay to use your art inside of other people's projects, then you can't be too proud. You should be you should know uh, what the point of the project is that you're involved in, and be a soldier for that project. You're not supposed to be the most important thing there, and people will see you anyway. They will appreciate that you are doing just the right amount for the job, and you're not trying to fucking prove yourself here and there. Then you're going to work more regularly, I think, because people want professionals. They don't want like, because if you imagine if you're on the other side of this, if you're making a film or a TV show or a campaign or whatever it is, and you need a couple of dancers, you're thinking about so many more things than what the dancers are going to look like in this. They're not trying to make you look good, so you have to let go of that. You have to just figure out. Look at the mood board. This is my big advice. Figure out whatever the project is you're on. Know what the people who are making that project, what are they trying to do? What is your purpose there? So then don't try to like add more than that. Just do what you're there to do. Enjoy yourself, be professional,
Mm-hmm.
polite, and then it'll be easy for people to work with you. So often we have too many skills. Dancers have all these skills that we can do this, that, that. No one needs it. Most of the professional jobs are just like dancers can do a whole myriad of different jobs because they have a mastery of their body. Um, don't get lost in trying to be the best in a specific context. That is pointless. It only is useful if you want to have a sense of community with other people who do that same thing. So that counts for everything, I think. If you if you really want to work as a dancer, you need to make your options very wide. Otherwise, you're stuck in one little area and you're going to be competing all the time. You need to have your hands in a few different baskets at once. And to do that, you can't be like, I want to be, this is my opinion. You can do what you want. If you want just the community aspect, that's fine. Go just do battles, or just try to do musical theater. That's fine if that's what you love. Okay. But if you want my advice on how to make sure you can make money with your body, just like know, be comfortable with what you look like, know what you're trying to sell. Think about, if you know the intention of the project, you'll be able to make the correct choices. What other advice? Look, I got so much advice. Look at yourself in the mirror.
That's all right. No, keep going.
Look at yourself in the mirror, and then dance in a way that you like the way it looks. That's all it is. And then you figure out according to different contexts. Like maybe sometimes you're going to have to be. We've done it all. We together we've been goats, we've been fucking I don't know, gimp suit people. You have to do everything. I've done in my life. I've done stuff that's not even dancing. You do green screen suits where I'm like holding up a singer like this with the bit of my fingers. You just have to, like, it's very simple. You have your body, you have your style. You should know like what your character is, and how that can fit in homogeneously with each project. If you do that without restricting yourself to a specific style, then you'll know how to pull back instead of trying to showcase all your skills. Often people go to an audition or something, you try to show everything you can do. It's not interesting to anyone. We want to just see or touch what your character is going to bring. So you have to know who you are. That's another part that takes a bit of time. You're going to have to, because this is I think there's too many people who think that, like, if I become very good at this one specific skill, then I'll be the best and everything will work out. But actually, no, you're just going to be good at that skill and it'll be useless to you. And then there'll be someone else who focused on their image, who doesn't have really skills, but they are very polite and they're always on time and they can do what they need to do, and it's going to work better. Just understand where you want to work, wherever it is that you want to work. Figure out what your role inside of that project can be, how you can be helpful without being invasive. Repeat that all the time and you'll end up somewhere. Also, it's probably good to have goals, but I never really had specific goals. I just said yes to everything and let it go wherever it went. But I also see people who have specific goals and it looks to work pretty well. There we go. That's a bit of a smorgasbord of advice, all mixed up.
Mate, I absolutely love that. You've brought like just an abundance of just, it's just gold right there. That's how I see it, man, of everything you've just shared with us today, bro. And which is why I wanted to bring you on here. So, Pat, is there something that you're doing right now in this moment that you want to maybe kind of share with the audience? That maybe you want to tune in or something like that, or is there any works coming up in the making? Something in the fashion world, or do you want to put a little plug here?
I got some stuff that I can't really talk about. There's nothing. I think the best thing to check out would be if you want to check out something that we've done. I made a film called Fibonacci Made Me Hardcore with my partner Marie. So that's on YouTube. You can check it out. It's done the festivals and everything. We are working on new films now, but this is the one that's out right now, so you can go check that out. And that's a fun one because you'll see a bit my universe. It was really, we brought together like 30 dancers from approximately 30 dancers, but from all around the world, but just friends that we've met. But everyone has their own research of character and dance and movement or performance. And what was fun is just like putting them all in a room together and kind of watching them compete for the attention of the camera,
Wow.
And so, because it's like, it's kind of like half fiction, half documentary in that sense, because there was a kind of very vague narrative, but essentially the point was bring a bunch of people who love to perform, who already have a way of performing, and then like see how that unravels, watch their anxiety going into it, or the people who are going to suddenly be very confident in a moment. And I think it's interesting for a dancer to think about how would you exist in front of a camera, you know. And that's a good study of that. I think if you watch that film, you'll kind of get a good sense of what I like about authenticity and character. And yeah, that's the only thing I have to plug right now. um, yeah, you could follow me on Instagram, I guess.
Amazing. Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I'll definitely be plugging you, and yeah, I think I'll chat with you once I stop this record.
Hmm.
But hey, man, look again. Just I can't believe it's actually been this many years.
Dude,
It
it's
feels like I'm
crazy.
back
I
in that
feel like I
space, in
fucking,
that
yeah,
when I was
I
in
know.
that little realm. But I'll chat with you after we stop this. So
Yeah, thank
thank you
you so
so
much.
much
No,
for coming on
thank you,
board.
man.
And yeah, tune in. Yeah,
See you
yeah,
later.
amazing, brother. All right. I'll chat with you soon.
See you
Okay,
later.
bye.